Well, thanks for joining us today. If you were with us last week on this program, Dr. Isaac Crockett and I had the real genuine privilege of introducing to you for the very first time to this program, anyway, a young man born in Pakistan who, after coming to Christ, experienced a divine provision of funds by an individual, enabling him to earn his law degree. And through a series of activity of the Lord's direction, this man now works with the ACLJ, American Center for Law and Justice, as a senior counsel for them. He also serves as a member of their international legal team. And being raised up in such a time as this young man, Shaheryar Gill, is with God's help, I believe, providing legal assistance for Christians suffering persecution in nations that are increasingly attempting to shut down the spread of the gospel. And I don't believe that just because it's the fact, but I think God is specifically using him in a special way. And we trust that as we talk again today with Shaheryar in part 2 of this 2-part series, that you'll be encouraged, that you'll be edified, and you'll be motivated to you can certainly partner in prayer, for sure. All of you can do that, but perhaps more, depending upon how God would lead you. So today, we're going to hear a condensed version here in just a moment of Shaheryar's testimony and how he's now focusing his efforts on behalf of persecuted Christians around the world. He'll share then in the body of today's program illustrations of a couple of real-life examples where legal appeals before often unlikely courts of law is being used of God to help not only bring physical relief to persecuted Christians, but as a result of it, to demonstrate, to lift up and magnify the power of God and bring glory to His name, which should be all of our purposes and goals. Shaheryar, welcome back today to Stand in the Gap.
Thank you.
Shaheryar, do this, because there are some people I know watching the program today who probably were not able to watch last week, and even for those who did, a little reminder would be good. But you got about 3 minutes here in this segment, so fill it up with your background, being born in Pakistan. Last time you actually didn't share how you came to Christ. I'd like to have you share that, please, if you don't mind. And then the movings of God, how He moved you around to now bring you to be working with the American Center for Law and Justice, but focusing on people in your home country of Pakistan and other countries around the world.
Right. Thank you, Sam. I grew up in Pakistan. It's a Muslim country, and a lot of times people think everybody who comes from Pakistan must be a Muslim. But I grew up in a Christian family. My grandparents, they were Catholic. And so I was used to going to church, went to a Christian school. But then I was about 16, 17 when I met a friend whose mom was a very active person at a church, that she had some women's groups that she was leading. So this young man became my friend, and he took me to his church. And basically that's how I accepted the Lord as my Savior around the age of 16, 17. But as a Christian growing up in Pakistan, I had seen, so much the persecution and the everyday life there as a Christian is very different from what we see in the U.S. or in the West. So God brought me people in my life, that friend, and then another friend who led me to law school, who really kind of was a godsend, obviously, who gathered friends and relatives to set up a fund so that I could go to law school, because I was so poor that I could not afford to go to law school. So, or any other school for that matter. But this friend was, again, he felt the need, for the desire to help a Christian brother who is not related to him by anything. But all he was doing was he was visiting in Pakistan from the U.S. and he met me, and God put in his heart to support me to go to law school. So that's really how. And then the law school in South Korea is a Christian law school that really helped me to see what a real Christian community looks like. So that's where I've met more brothers and sisters in Christ, and my faith has strengthened since then.
And Shaheryar, I thank you for that condensing. You had a lot to condense, but I think our viewers got. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that by just that piece, if nothing else, you understand that, reflect in your own lives perhaps, how God led you to come to Christ. No matter, you may be watching me, I don't know what, you may be a business owner, you may be a retired person sitting at home right now, you may be a young person watching and looking ahead, not wondering what God is going to do with your life. Be obedient and follow the open doors that God gives you where you are. And if God puts somebody on your heart, like this businessman, God put something on his heart to help the schooling of Shaheryar, follow it up. Let it happen. The Lord then does amazing, amazing things. That's what we're talking about today. When we come back, we're going to begin looking at some of the actual real-life examples, cases in which Shaheryar in the organization there has been involved, and see how God is doing some really amazing things.
Truth, flexible or permanent? The Bible, ancient history, or powerfully relevant? Culture, a reflection of enlightenment or warning signs? The pastor, commentator, or frontline combatant? Every day, American Pastors Network speaks to these questions where and when they matter. With hundreds of affiliate radio stations nationwide, a website and mobile app screening today's headlines through the twin lenses of the Bible and the Constitution, educating, informing, equipping. This is the American Pastors Network. The time is now to stand in the gap for truth.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. You can view our in-house studio productions on demand, or watch what's on the station right now with our 24/7 live stream. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website for more information. Visit lighthousetv.org to stay connected. There you can find out what's currently on the air and coming up, how to watch in your area on cable, satellite, broadcast, or streaming devices. Watch past programs or our live stream. Follow us on social media and learn more about the station, our hosts, and our programming. Lighthouse TV, positively different.
Welcome back to Stand in the Gap, and this program is Hope in the Midst of Persecution. This is actually a part 2. And in our first program, as we were talking with our friend, attorney Shaheryar Gill, who is a human rights attorney for the ACLJ, he was talking about growing up in Pakistan, and he just kind of condensed that testimony here at the beginning of our program. But it's such a different culture where things that are illegal, it's not that it's legal to do this, but are commonplace. The persecution, the accusations of blasphemy, many times false accusations of blasphemy against Christians, and the violence, even murder, other violations of people, rape and things like that, that can happen in a situation. And so growing up in that, and how God in His providence allowed now Shaheryar to be in America working for the American Center for Law and Justice, yet spending so much of his efforts internationally, even in his home country of Pakistan. And Shaheryar, some of the gripping stories that you have told us on our radio program and told Sam and I just behind the scenes, I wonder if you could share some of that. There's one of a young man, Shahzad, a 16-year-old who was falsely accused of blasphemy, but one that really piqued my interest in my church, a little tiny church out in the hayfields in northern Pennsylvania, just a very, very small congregation, got them giving now on a regular basis to try to help this family out. Was of a man who was falsely accused, mobbed, business that he was using to support himself and others destroyed. Could you tell us some about that situation?
Right. So, Isaac, what happened was, as you know, blasphemy law in Pakistan is it's notorious for, people bringing people to prisons, killings, murders. So, what happened in this case was he was about 70, 72 years old man, a Christian man who had a shoe factory, and he was cleaning his street after a storm. And what's really common in Pakistan is after you do something like that, if you collected some papers and waste, and so they would put those things on fire. And this man had done the same thing. He collected some trash and he puts that on fire. A neighbor sees him, and because he's jealous of this Christian man's Nazir Masih's business, this Muslim man then accuses him of burning the Quran. Now, that's a punishable offense in Pakistan. So this man then goes to a mosque, gathers other people, announces from the mosque that this Christian man has burned the Quran, and the mob gathers and attacks the Christian man. They beat him severely. They stole the shoes from the shoe factory and then burned it down. They attacked his home, stole things, burned down the house, and then killed this Christian man, just because one Muslim man had accused him of burning the Quran. Now, the police arrested about 74 people based on the videos, pictures, eyewitness testimonies. And what has happened so far in that case is that, which is sort of like not so common in Pakistan, is as we might think, the judge was very biased. He basically took the side, even he was talking like a defense counsel instead of a judge. So he was questioning our attorneys, the things that don't really even are not legally required for the judge to do. So even though we had evidence in the form of videos and eyewitness testimonies, this judge granted bail to all 74 people in that case. Now, what we have done is, in this case, is also that we have appealed that decision of the judge at the Lahore High Court that will now hear the appeal. In fact, we have had one hearing in that appeal, and the court has the judges understand our argument, and they also understand that there is evidence. So they have called the evidence from the police so that the judges can actually review the evidence, so that hopefully after reviewing the evidence, they will see that the lower court really decided the case, not on the merits, but there was actual religious bias. So hopefully this appeal will be overturned and those people will be arrested again.
There's so many cases that you've shared with us. And in this particular one you're just sharing with this family, you were telling us about the incident, but at the time that you first mentioned it, you were not their counsel, but God answered prayer and you were able to become their counsel. And there's so many cases like that you're doing through the ACLJ for free to those families because of the donations that come in. There are several others, including several who are on death row, sentenced to be hung. Could you tell us about one young man who's been in jail now for, I think, over a third of his life, around 7 years, and he's only in his early 20s, he's just a teenager when this all happened. Could you tell us just real briefly about that situation as well?
Right, Isaac, this case is really close to my heart. This kid, he was now 21. He was 16 when he was arrested over false charge of blasphemy. What happened was he was at work. He was a janitor at a hospital. His Muslim co-worker was sort of inviting him to Islam, and he was telling him about Muslim prophets and asked Shehzad about Christian prophets. Shehzad said he didn't know much about it. So the conversation went on, and the Muslim friend or the co-worker tells him about the Prophet Muhammad. And Shehzad said to him that, well, he remembers that one of his father's friend, who is also a Muslim, he says bad words when he hears anybody that has a name Muhammad in it, which is a common name in Pakistan as well. So this Muslim co-worker then gets upset with Shehzad instead of really getting upset with this man who actually says something. He got upset with Shehzad. Shehzad was called to a different location where a mob had gathered, and they asked him what he had said to his co-worker at the hospital. Shehzad said, well, all I said was that my father's friend says these things. So they took him to the police, charged him with blasphemy, even though what he was accused of, that doesn't really constitute a crime. Even under Pakistan's blasphemy law, it does not constitute a crime. Saying somebody else did something is not a crime. So even then, he was charged because there was a mob behind the accusation, and the police was forced to really charge him, arrest him, and put him in prison. We represented him at the trial. It went on for about 5 years. And at the end of the trial, the court sentenced Shehzad to death. One of the reasons, obviously, was the mob. They would come to the court at every single hearing. I was there at the last final argument, and I saw those people standing in the courtroom, outside the courtroom, basically to intimidate the judge. And the judge was intimidated. He sentenced Shehzad to death. We have appealed that decision at the Lahore High Court, and we are now waiting for the court to decide. It's almost 2 years now, and so we have filed several petitions at the High Court for the court to hear it sooner than later.
Shaheryar, I think our viewers hearing what you're saying can understand what you're saying, because we're seeing a lot of intimidation of courts, and even in our own country. So that used to be something that did not happen, but it is happening. Just a quick question for you, and we've never talked about this in the radio, but you have these two cases that you are pursuing. How unusual is the example of the mob attacking this older man in that charge, or how common is it a mob attacking a teenager, for instance, in this setting? Is this something that happens a lot, which if you had a greater team, you would be able to be representing more people in Pakistan, or is this an exception to the rule? How would you describe that?
Sam, it happens quite often. And for the last 30 years, I've been tracking these cases, and there have been many, many cases where mobs have attacked over false blasphemy charges, even though the law is there and they could arrest somebody and put him in jail. But the mob now thinks that, okay, well, we have to administer justice, so to speak. And they go and attack people. People have been killed. Their homes have been destroyed. There was an incident where almost 200 homes were destroyed. Just last year, about 20 churches in a different mob attack. 20 churches were burned, set on fire, and this. So yes, absolutely. I think what we need is more lawyers, more people to work in this area, to help support, to help argue these cases, and what we do here is really at the ACLJ, we oversee a lot of the day-to-day work that is done in Pakistan. We interact with the lawyers. We review every petition that is filed in the court in Pakistan. So it gives really a lot of, it's sort of a privilege to be able to actually work in both countries so that we can bring the expertise from both countries and represent these people. So yes, I think more legal minds, more competent people to help our Christian brothers and sisters is really important.
And well, I could go a couple different directions on it, but ladies and gentlemen, I hope you understand that what we're talking about here, we as believers, are we not to pray for the persecuted church? These folks that Shaheryar is talking about right now, we've never seen. We'll never see their picture, but we know it's real. And we are to mourn with those who mourn. We are to pray for those who are persecuted. We can do that, but sometimes we can do more. In this case, God has called some of this team to be able to do more and to actually interface in the courts of law that have been established by God, but not administering it properly, and appeal. And I think it's just wonderful, Shaheryar. Less than 2 minutes here, but I just want to ask you a quick question. You referred earlier to bringing up some video to help defend this elderly gentleman that was killed. Here's just a quick question. You can't go real deep. But we're in an age of technology, and technology, like countries like communist China, is using cameras and all that kind of thing to actually persecute people and to do things against them. But you've been able to use technology to help actually defend. Just explain your philosophy, how you're doing that, and technology and the use of that.
Right, Sam, the law can be used in a good way and in a bad way. So the purpose of the law is good, but then sometimes what we as human beings, because of our pride, our greed, for whatever motives, we use the law in a bad way. So, for example, in this case, there is evidence, there's video evidence, there are photos that prove somebody has committed a crime. Now, we can bring that evidence to the court to prove our case. On the other hand, same laws have been used to really even persecute people. We are representing another Christian man in a different case, where he was a member of a group on WhatsApp, a discussion group that was engaged in religious conversation, and he was arrested for what I believe is a false blasphemy charge. He was a part of this discussion group, and the government was watching him. So this is it's very scary that somebody can watch what you're doing in your home, sitting, texting somebody on the phone, and that can be used against you to put you in prison for your life. These are real problems.
And ladies and gentlemen, again, the wisdom and the need for wise people like Shaheryar and the team who understand technology, understand the court, understand the law, but understand biblical principle and truth and justice to be able to intercede on behalf of those who are being persecuted for their faith. That's important. Thank you. We'll be back in just a moment as we wrap up the program.
Stand in the Gap is produced and recorded in the studios of Lighthouse TV. Positively different.
For over 2,000 years, pastors have carried the light of the gospel through opposition, persecution, and every flaming arrow of the enemy. But sadly, now more than ever, our nation is experiencing a period of spiritual darkness. But what would happen if churches threw off the shackles of fear and boldly stood for truth? If 100,000 pastors around the nation joined together and committed to preaching God's word no matter the consequence, pastors who are unaffected by changing times and the opinions of men, what would happen if America's pulpits became aflame with the preaching of righteousness? The great darkness from rejecting God's standards would be expelled, the prayers of God's people heard, our nation healed, and God's blessings restored. The time has come to stand.
Well, as we've looked at hope in the midst of persecution on the second part, our talking and interview with our friend, attorney, human rights attorney, Shaheryar Gill, we've talked about what has happened what you do in America, but also in Pakistan and places. But one of the things I didn't know until talking to you recently was that you are filing briefs at the United Nations and at their courts of law and things. I think you said 40 this year. That's almost one a week. And there's one you're working on right now. Maybe you could explain a little bit of that as we close our program today.
Right, Isaac. We have an extensive work at the United Nations. We file briefs, as you said. It's about one report a week, about over 40 reports in 1 year. But one of the aspects that we are involved in is the advocacy for Israel. And as you know, the ICC is considering warrants against the Prime Minister of Israel and the Defense Minister of Israel. And there's an argument going on at the International Criminal Court whether the court can exercise jurisdiction over Israeli nationals. The court has recently allowed us to submit an amicus brief, which is the friend of the court brief. It has allowed several people, and among those several people is the ACLJ. And we have been allowed to file a brief, present the argument to the court as to why the court cannot exercise jurisdiction over Israeli nationals. So it's one of the very important briefs. I think one of the very important issues. It's a lot of it. The case at the ICC hangs on this big question whether the ICC can exercise jurisdiction. So we are in the process of preparing the brief and filing it at the International Criminal Court. We have also filed briefs at the International Court of Justice, in which I think you might remember that South Africa accused Israel of committing genocide. So even in that case, we had filed a brief and we had sent it to over 50 to 60 nations to their foreign ministries for them to be able to consult that brief when they make an argument.
Shaheryar, I apologize. I've got to jump in. We're bringing it to a close. But ladies and gentlemen, I think all of this helps to understand the breadth and the depth of the representation before courts of law to help those who are being unjustly persecuted because of their faith, be they a Christian or a Jew, as we talk about here. Very important. Pray for this group as you pray for us. If God leads you to do something more with them, go to their website, and it'll be on the screen, and contact them. Maybe you want to help support a young law student like Shaheryar was, or other things. I would encourage you to do that. God will bless, I am sure.